Hi and welcome to this SOLIDWORKS Visualize tutorial for creating a rendered animation of bubbles. My son is obsessed with bubbles lately, so I wanted to create something fun for him to watch. To follow this tutorial, you'll need to download the SOLIDWORKS file from the blog. In this file you should have the model parts and the ready-made Visualize project. We will start within Visualize and we'll open the bubble animation project. When it opens, you can see that I've already laid out the bubble parts. Under the Models tab, you can see a list of all the parts within the project. I initially designed several sized bubbles, but you can scale up or down the bubbles within Visualize, which I also did to achieve the variation of bubbles. Under the Cameras tab, you'll see the two viewports I have. These are separate camera views. The first viewport is used to position a bubble into the bubble wand, and the second is the viewport I'll use for the animation. To do this, simply right click on the viewport and add a keyframe. It should appear in the animation bar below. If I double click onto the first viewport, it becomes visible and a green tick will appear on the tile showing me which camera is active. While in this viewport, I can drag to view my models in all different ways without impacting the animation camera. Going back to viewport 2, I can click into scenes and show you here the backplate image I added for my background. Ensure full background is checked if you add an image of your own. Selecting appearances, the current appearance says oil as I previously attached it, but I changed the type to plastic to show how I applied the oil in the first place and what I did to give it the bubble effect. Going to the Libraries tab, within Liquids you can find oil. You can drag and drop it onto one of the bubble parts. Then going back to the Appearances tab, I can replace the other appearance by right-clicking the new oil appearance, going to Edit and copying the appearance. Then right-selecting the old oil appearance and Edit, Assign Appearance, and then just delete it. Now I'm going to edit the oil appearance. Start by changing the colour to white using the value bar, dragging it to 100. This makes the bubbles translucent, and you start to see that rainbowy oil slick pattern or film appear. I make some tweaks to the index of refraction, inputting 1.8. Then for the film's index of refraction, I input 1.3. This just impacts the amount of light that can enter the appearance. The film thickness randomness is changed to 0.85. This just spreads the pattern map further. Finally, I remove any roughness to the appearance by inputting 0. This gives me a realistic bubble appearance. Moving into the Models tab, we can start creating the animation. To keep it simple, we will add a keyframe and work on the animation of each part individually. To find the bubble part I want quicker, I can select it from the render window and it will highlight in the models list. For this bubble, I want it to look like it's being blown up bigger before coming away from the bubble wand. Right-clicking onto the selected bubble, go to Animation and add keyframe. You can also use K on your keyboard to add a keyframe. It will appear in the list here. I can drag the time bar of the animation along here. The red bar is where the animation ends. You can make the animation shorter or longer, but I'm keeping it at 8 seconds for the tutorial. Dragging the yellow time bar to 3 seconds, change the scale of the bubble to 0.65. You'll see it enlarge here. However, it now overlaps the wand, so I'm going to switch camera views to move it into its new position. Under Models, use the position options to drag the bubble into the wand hole without it overlapping the outer wand edge like this. Once I'm happy with it, I can switch back to my animation camera to see the bubble is now in the right place. When I drag the animation bar to watch the bubble scale down and then up, the next step is to make the bubble float up and off screen. So I'm moving my time bar to 6 seconds. Then with my position options, I'm dragging the bubble away from the wand and up to here. Finally, dragging the time bar to the end of my animation at 8 seconds, I'm going to move the bubble again, floating it up towards the left and then up. I can even push the bubble backwards into the render space, making the bubble look a little smaller as it goes, and then drag it off screen. If I watch it back, I can see I have a little issue with the bubble dropping a little from the wand. I can fix this. Selecting this keyframe so that it highlights yellow and opening the keyframe properties here, I can change the tension of the movement to the maximum. This keeps the bubble motion tighter. So when I replay it now, the bubble stays where I need it to, and it then floats up and off screen. Dragging the time bar to the beginning, add a keyframe to the bubble wand model. With this part, I want the wand to sit onto the floor of the scene after the bubble is blown up. At 3 seconds, I'm adding a keyframe. The wand won't move up until this point, but to ensure this, I can select the keyframe, and under Options, I can make the transition in Hold, which stops any movement up to that point. Dragging to 6 seconds, under the Rotation XYZ options, input 90 degrees for the X-axis, and drag the wand down using the Position Y-axis options, until it looks like it's on the wooden floor of the backplate image. Dragging the time bar to the end of the animation, I can add a final keyframe. Like the bubble, you may need to edit this keyframe to hold the keyframe going out. This should stop it moving. The next model part I'm going to animate is the bubble cluster. Adding a keyframe at the start of the animation, dragging the bar to 4 seconds, I'm going to drag the bubbles up and to the right. Here I'm just being quite playful with the positioning of the bubble at this time point of the animation. The animation won't copy how I'm moving the part. It will just move from one keyframe position up to the next keyframe position. I won't overcomplicate the animation by adding too many keyframes or movements, as the bubbles should move quite freely but calmly up and off camera. So dragging the time bar to the end, I'm moving the bubble cluster until it goes off screen or out of the render window. Again, I play around with the bubbles moving from one side or the other. I test out the movement using the time bar, just dragging it back and forth over the keyframes to see how the animation is coming together. You could use the play, pause or rewind options to watch your animation, but I just find it quicker to use the time bar. If you want to amend a movement, you can use undo, or you can drag the time bar back to the keyframe you want to edit and move the part again. Selecting all of the remaining bubbles from the list, I'm going to add a keyframe to all of them. You can do this individually or you can do it all at the same time, it's up to you. All of the model parts should have a red dot next to them. To make it easier to know which bubble I'm working on, I select it from the render window and it will highlight in the list here. At 4.5 seconds, I'm going to move the first single bubble. With this bubble already being quite high up, I'll make it go straight off screen. You will need to ensure that all of your bubbles will move upwards in each keyframe, even if it's only a little bit. But you will need to ensure that the bubbles don't move too quickly compared with each other. I don't need to add a keyframe at the end of this, the bubble will just stay where it is, so I can move on to my next bubble. Fast forwarding through my animation, you can see that I mix up the placement of my keyframes to make the bubbles move more naturally, just stopping it from looking too structured and timed. With the final bubble I have, I decided to move the starting point of the bubble to the bottom corner here and scale it up. Don't be afraid to play with the composition of the bubbles, you can always undo your edits. With all of my keyframes in place, I can test that I'm happy with the movements of the bubbles and that all the bubbles have floated off screen. I can then use Tools and Render. To render an animation, you want this Render tab. Create Movie should be ticked, and for frames per second I like to use 40. This just ensures a very smooth animation. I can then start the render. This may take some time to complete, but you will be left with something that looks a little like this. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching.